On this episode of the Crush the Rush podcast, we are chatting all about business non-negotiables. And there's actually a really interesting backstory behind this episode. And that is typically I sit down usually 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time and I just map out what I want to talk about on the Friday pep talk. So I definitely have a plan of what I'm going to talk about. I don't always have all of the show notes written, but I kind of just have a cadence of how I think things are going to go. So I knew that this was going to be a topic coming into this week. And I knew that it was on my schedule. And we had just gotten back from our Europe trip, which was almost 2.5, 3 weeks sort of off of podcasting. And I sit down to record this because at the time of recording, I'm actually leaving for Nashville to talk at the Podcasting Moms Conference, which by the time you listen to this will have already happened. And I sit down and my brand new $400 microphone that I got for Christmas totally broke. And I love this microphone. I talk about it all the time. It's a Shure microphone. You see a lot of people use it. It's not cheap. I used a much cheaper one for 4 years. And this year I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to invest in a really good microphone. And I did, and it totally broke because of user error. And that's because how I had it plugged in and the plug got stuck in the back of the microphone. So long story short, I had to Amazon Prime a brand new $400 microphone so that I could record this podcast before I left for the Podcasting Moms Conference. And ironically, the topic for this podcast is business non-negotiables. And this is one of them. And in my head, I'm like, is the universe trying to tell me something? I don't know. I don't know why this is happening. And we just also started a YouTube channel. So also in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm going to show up for all of my podcast episodes in cute branded outfits. And I'm going to have my hair done and show up how I want to feel. And today I am totally in sweatpants because this is my business non-negotiable. The microphone broke and we had to get it done. We had to just get it done. And I think honestly, I kind of was joking about showing up in branded apparel, but I like to be prepared and I like to have a theme. These are all things that I talk about all the time. But when it comes down to, is the non-negotiable getting done? Sometimes you just got to put a hat on and get it done. So thankfully, thanks to Amazon, we have a new mic. We are back in business, and here I am talking about business non-negotiables. Now, the reason why that this topic came up is inside our mastermind, every single week, we have what I call office hours. So every Monday, we sit down, and I usually teach something for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I prompt the group with a topic of okay, let's talk about, what's going on this week. And then we set everyone's intentions for the week. So everyone in the mastermind knows exactly what they're going to work on. And we make sure that they have what they need to be successful. So a few weeks ago, I brought up the topic of business non-negotiables. And I shared this because I notice in all of my programs during the seasonal shifts, so spring break, summer, holidays, etc., there are two types of business owners. There are the ones that pause and stop, right? And I talked about this a little bit in my newsletter a couple weeks ago. So those that pause and stop because they're I have no time, I can't get it done. And those that keep going. But hear me out a little bit. So I recently heard this quote when I was on vacation, and it was, if you are tired, slow down, don't quit. So today, I'm not going to lie, I'm tired. We just got back from traveling. I'm traveling again. I didn't want to go through this whole ordeal of setting up this whole new tech system. The new microphone's very nice, but it wasn't on my plan. And I'm like, no, Holly, it's a non-negotiable. You do it and you get it done. I should also add that it's a Saturday. It's 70 degrees in Ohio and every inch of my body is not wanting to record a podcast. But I know that this is the system that saves me and the business non-negotiable. So often when we're in a season of busy, right? Or even in corporate, when your boss is on vacation, I see people quit. And I see you do so much work at the beginning because that's the exciting part. The exciting part is buying the microphone the first time. And the exciting part is putting the first episode out there. Sometimes the exciting part is not episode 422 on a Saturday afternoon, but that's where you see the difference. So the difference is not stopping, but just slowing down just a little bit to get through what is necessary. And that's what I like to think about when I think about your business non-negotiables. So I have a list of business non-negotiables that I do every single week. And I like to say that it's the simplest to-do list you will ever create. So the first one is pick one focus for the week. So like I said, this is a Saturday when I'm recording this. I'm getting ready to leave out of town. My focus for the week is already written down for Monday. I already know that the one thing that I have to do is honestly get through some podcast episodes and start planning for the next month. That's my focus for the following week. If nothing else happens, that's what has to happen. So the first thing that I do every single week as a non-negotiable is what's the one focus? Pick the one thing. The second thing I do is never miss a podcast episode. It's the reason I'm coming to you in a hat, in a sweatshirt. In 4 years, we have not missed one. It is the driver of all of our content. My team waits for it. My content waits for it. Like everything is based on this episode. So I cannot miss it. That is my content creation. So I want you to think about when you're thinking about your business non-negotiables, what are you doing consistently every single week that is curating the content for you? We can do a whole episode on podcast repurposing, but for me, it is pick one focus for the week, never miss a podcast episode ever, ever, ever. The next is always send one email a week. So the question I have for you is, how are you nurturing your audience, right? So we're creating content. We have one focus. Now, how are we nurturing our audience? For me, it's the podcast episode, which we know we're not going to miss, and it's sending one email a week. The last piece is my business non-negotiables, kind of not business, and that is how are you recharging? You can't work at 110% pace every single day, right? So my rule is for 24 to 48 hours a week, I have no social media. Usually it's like Saturday to Sunday or Sunday to Monday, but how are you recharging? So in these business non-negotiables, we've talked about your one focus. We've talked about what's the driver for all of your content. Don't skip it. We've talked about how are you nurturing your audience. We've talked about how are you recharging. And then last but not the least, this is a little bit of a bonus one, is always follow up. Always, 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 always. I should do an episode on my follow-up process, but I very, very rarely miss commenting, emailing, responding in a 24-hour period because most people will not. Most people will be like, oh, I'm pausing right now. I'll get back to you in 6 weeks. Well, guess what? In 6 weeks, the person that's asking you a question is going to find another answer from someone else. So don't miss out on the opportunity to connect and build those relationships. So those are my non-negotiables every single week. If I'm on vacation, these get scheduled ahead of time, but never, never, ever skipped ever. And if you set a strong set of non-negotiables and then layer on systems to support your business, I like to say your business is basically bulletproof. So let me give you a couple of examples. So I execute my non-negotiables every single week. I have not missed them, knock on wood, for going on 4 years. Like this is like the glue that holds everything together. And then I have funnels, right? So we've got a lot of podcast episodes on funnels, and we'll start to get into this more over the summer. But the system number one that saves me is that I nurture potential new clients through email funnels. That's system number one. You should have something in place to nurture future clients while you don't have to, right? The second system that I have in place is a funnel to welcome new clients. So when people join you, you have things in place that are doing the work for you. And it doesn't mean that you're taking away that personal touch. It just means that that first initial interaction or the first couple interactions is planned, and it's not something where you have to be online to do. And then the third system that I have in place that is kind of a mix of the first two things is a weekly goal setting session. And I talk about this a lot. I do this on Sundays. Sometimes like this week, it's done on Saturdays, but it's never skipped. And I always communicate with our team what that one focus is. What's that main focus of the business during a specific time frame so that we can all prioritize the different activities. So between the business non-negotiables, between the funnels, and then between these weekly goal setting sessions and communication and prioritizing activities, everything flows together. And honestly, it's the system that saves me. So I use ClickUp to sort of prioritize all these things. I always say the system doesn't matter. What matters is that you are consistent. What I want you to do is I want you to look at your to-do list. And my guess is 1 to 2 of those things are high priority. The rest would be great to get done, but probably don't move the needle as much. So as an example, today is Saturday. I'm setting my goals for the following week. You could do it on Friday. You could do it on Sunday. You have your list of business non-negotiables now, right? So we talked about what those are. And you're going to communicate those to your team. And you're going to really think about, hey, look at my to-do list. I'm going to pick 1 or 2 things that have to get done. These are my non-negotiables, and everything else we're going to sort of move to the end. So today, I want you to be thinking about what are your business non-negotiables and how can you set some things in place to make sure that you follow through on those. Everything else is a bonus. And I share this because yes, there are some complicated things that happen with funnels. And yes, you can have some things that happen, that maybe take some time to set up with your team. But when you think about running a business and you think about it in a super, super simple way, as in setting up non-negotiables and then setting up systems to support you, it becomes so much easier. And that list of non-negotiables is really not that complicated. You could totally pick one focus for the week. You can do it right now. You can create one thing of content every single week and not miss it. And that consistency is going to create that momentum, right? That's the podcast for us. You can send 1 email a week. You can figure out where you're going to nurture your audience. And then you can figure out where you're going to recharge. And then as a bonus, make sure that you're just creating those relationships. So it becomes easier, it becomes more flexible, and it becomes something that you can look forward to and doesn't feel as overwhelming. So I'm super curious, what are your business non-negotiables each week? Do you have them? I want to know what they are. And if you don't, send me a DM and I will help you come up with them, because this is one of my favorite systems and it's the easiest to-do list you will ever create.